The galaxy was on fire. Colonies burned, their skies streaked with orange and red as alien warships descended like vultures circling prey. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. Not now. Not after centuries of human expansion into the stars. Humanity had clawed its way out of Earth's gravity well, colonizing moons, planets, and even asteroids. They'd built great cities among the stars, crafted alliances between factions, and dreamed of a future where humanity would rule the cosmos. But none of that mattered anymore. The Crithari Dominion had arrived. Their ships were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Massive, organic-looking constructs that seemed alive. Hulls shimmered with iridescent hues, pulsing faintly as if powered by some unseen heartbeat. Weapons fired beams of energy so intense they could vaporize entire fleets in seconds. And yet, it wasn't just their technology that terrified people. It was their silence. No demands for surrender, no declarations of war, just annihilation. Entire colonies vanished overnight, reduced to ash and debris floating in the void. In the chaos, one ship lingered at the edge of human space, forgotten by both allies and enemies alike. The UES Solace was an old frigate, outdated even before it rolled off the assembly line decades ago. Its engines groaned under stress, its hull bore scars from countless battles, and its crew numbered barely 24. Yet despite its flaws, the Solace remained stubbornly intact, a relic of better days now thrust into the worst. At the helm stood Captain Ilara Voss, a woman whose sharp eyes and sharper tongue commanded respect even from those who doubted her abilities. She was tall but lean, her dark hair tied back in a practical braid. Scars crisscrossed her hands, souvenirs from years spent repairing systems during emergencies. Her uniform was worn, patched in places, but she wore it with pride. To anyone who looked closely, Ilara carried herself like someone who refused to give up, even when everyone else already had. Ilara hadn't always been a captain. Born on a mining colony near the Outer Rim, she grew up watching freighters pass overhead, dreaming of adventure beyond the stars. When recruiters came looking for volunteers to join the United Earth Coalition, UEC, she signed up immediately. At first, the military treated her poorly, dismissing her because of her humble origins. But Ilara proved them wrong time and again, climbing the ranks through sheer grit and determination. By the time she took command of the Solace, she'd earned the loyalty of her crew, but also made enemies among higher-ups who resented her rise. Now, as reports poured in about the Crithari invasion, those same superiors abandoned her. Orders came down to retreat to fortified zones, leaving distant colonies undefended. The Solace received no such orders because no one remembered it existed. Stuck at the edge of explored space, Ilara and her crew listened in horror as colony after colony fell silent. Communication lines collapsed, cutting them off from the rest of humanity. For weeks they drifted aimlessly, unsure whether to fight or flee. Then came the transmission. It was faint, garbled, almost lost in static, a plea for help from a nearby colony. "Please. Anyone. They're here." The voice broke off, abruptly replaced by the sound of explosions and screams. Something inside Ilara snapped. She couldn't ignore it. Whatever was happening, whoever these aliens were, someone needed to stand against them, even if it meant standing alone. Gathering her crew in the cramped mess hall, Ilara laid out her plan. "We go to that colony," she said firmly. "If there are survivors, we bring them aboard. If not, we find out what happened. Either way, we don't run." Her words were met with uneasy silence. Some nodded reluctantly, others stared at the floor, avoiding eye contact. Finally, Lieutenant Rin, the ship's young engineer, spoke up. "Captain, with all due respect, we're one ship. What can we do against whatever those things are?" Ilara turned to him, her expression unyielding. "We do what we've always done. We survive, we adapt, and if we have to, we fight. Because if we don't, who will?" Rin hesitated, then gave a curt nod. Slowly, the rest of the crew followed suit. The journey to the colony took 3 days. As the Solace approached, the scene that greeted them was nightmarish. The once thriving settlement was gone, reduced to rubble and twisted metal. Bodies floated in the vacuum, frozen in grotesque poses. The airlock doors hung open, torn apart, by massive claws. Whatever had attacked here hadn't left survivors, but amid the devastation, the crew found something unexpected: a data core buried beneath the ruins. Chief Navigator Kale, a grizzled veteran with a penchant for tinkering, managed to extract fragments of information. Most of it was corrupted, but one phrase stood out: Singularity Core. "What is it?" asked Ensign Mira, the ship's communications officer. "No idea," Kale admitted, scratching his beard. "But it's tied to the Crithari. Looks like some kind of weapon." Ilara frowned. A weapon capable of destroying entire colonies. That explained why the Crithari didn't bother negotiating. They didn't need to. If this Singularity Core was real, it represented an existential threat to humanity. "We have to find it," Ilara declared, "and stop it." Her decision shocked the crew. Stop it? How? With one battered ship and 20-odd people? Yet, as they discussed the possibilities, a strange sense of purpose settled over them. Maybe it was desperation, maybe it was madness, but for the first time since the invasion began, they felt like they had a mission worth fighting for. Over the next few days, the Solace scoured nearby systems for clues. They encountered abandoned stations, cryptic messages left behind by fleeing scientists, and even rogue factions within humanity who believed siding with the Crithari was the only way to survive. Each discovery added pieces to the puzzle. The Singularity Core wasn't just a weapon. It was sentient, designed to assimilate all life forms into a collective consciousness. The Crithari viewed this as salvation. Humanity saw it as extinction. Ilara wrestled with the implications. Could she really destroy something so advanced? Wasn't there another way? But deep down, she knew the truth. The Crithari weren't interested in coexistence. They wanted domination, plain and simple. And if stopping them meant sacrificing everything, including herself, then so be it. As the Solace ventured deeper into enemy territory, tensions ran high. Supplies dwindled, equipment malfunctioned, and tempers flared. But through it all, Ilara remained steadfast. She reminded her crew why they fought, not just for survival, but for the people they'd lost and the future they hoped to protect. One evening, as the ship drifted silently through the void, Ilara stood on the bridge, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. Behind her, Kale approached cautiously. "You think we can pull this off, Captain?" he asked. Ilara didn't answer right away. Instead, she thought about her family, killed in a previous war. About the long nights spent wondering if her sacrifices meant anything. About the faces of her crew, counting on her to lead them through this nightmare. "I don't know," she said finally. "But I'm not giving up. Not while there's still breath in my body." Kyle nodded, a ghost of a smile crossing his face. "Good enough for me." With renewed determination, the Solace pressed onward. Ahead lay danger, uncertainty, and death, but also hope. Somewhere out there, hidden in the heart of the Crithari Armada, was the key to ending the invasion. All they had to do was find it, and survive long enough to use it. The deeper the UES Solace ventured into enemy territory, the more dangerous the galaxy became. Every jump through hyperspace brought them closer to the heart of the Crithari Dominion, and further from any semblance of safety. The crew was exhausted, their nerves frayed like old wires. Supplies were running dangerously low, and repairs could only patch up so much damage before something gave out entirely. Yet despite the odds, Captain Ilara Voss refused to turn back. Each new discovery they made painted a clearer picture of the Crithari's true intentions, and none of it was reassuring. In one abandoned outpost, they found logs detailing experiments on human prisoners. The Crithari weren't just invaders, they were scavengers, harvesting resources to sustain their dying empire. Their Singularity Core wasn't merely a weapon. It was a desperate gambit to save themselves by absorbing all life into a single collective consciousness. To them, assimilation was salvation. To humanity, it was extinction. Ilara wrestled with this revelation late at night when the rest of the crew slept. She sat alone in her quarters, staring at the cracked screen of her datapad as fragmented reports scrolled past. Each word weighed heavily on her shoulders. Destroying the core might stop the invasion, but it would also mean unleashing untold destruction. Could she live with that? Was there another way? Her thoughts drifted to her family. Her parents, killed in an orbital bombardment during a border skirmish years ago, and her younger brother, who had joined the UEC only to die in a failed counterattack against separatists. They were gone, their lives cut short by wars they hadn't asked for. Ilara had spent years fighting for peace, for unity among humanity's fractured factions. Now here she was, preparing to destroy a device that promised exactly what she'd always wanted: unity. But at what cost? She shook her head, forcing herself to focus. The Krithari's version of unity wasn't freedom, it was erasure. Humanity would lose its individuality, its culture, its very soul. No matter how tempting the core's promises sounded, Ilara knew she couldn't let it exist. A breakthrough. Amid chaos, the next breakthrough came unexpectedly. While scanning a distant star system, the Solace detected faint energy signatures emanating from a derelict research station orbiting a dying sun. The facility appeared abandoned, its reactors offline and life support systems dead. But something about it felt off. Could be a trap, Lieutenant Rin warned as the crew gathered in the briefing room. His voice carried a note of unease. "It's always a trap," muttered Chief Navigator Kale, earning a few nervous chuckles. Ilara studied the holographic map projected above the table. "We don't have a choice. If there's even a chance, we can learn more about the core, we take it." Approaching the station was nerve-wracking. The Solace's sensors picked up traces of Krithari patrols nearby, though none close enough to pose an immediate threat. Still, everyone moved cautiously, weapons ready and escape routes planned. Inside the station, the air was thick with dust and decay. Walls were scorched black, evidence of a hasty evacuation, or worse. Ensign Mira led the way, her handheld scanner pinging softly as she searched for data terminals. Eventually, they stumbled upon a secure lab buried deep within the complex. Its doors were sealed shut, requiring hours of work from Rin to bypass the ancient locks. When they finally entered, the room was a treasure trove of information. Terminals buzzed to life under Rin's expert touch, revealing detailed schematics of the Singularity Core, its location, and its capabilities. Most importantly, they uncovered intel suggesting the core was housed aboard the Krithari mothership, a colossal vessel surrounded by an impenetrable defensive grid. "This is it," Ilara said, her voice steady, despite the storm brewing inside her. "This is how we stop them." But securing the data came at a price. As they downloaded the files, alarms blared throughout the station. Krithari drones swarmed the corridors, forcing the team to fight their way back to the Solace. During the retreat, Rin stayed behind to hold off a group of biomechanical enforcers, giving the others time to escape. "No," Ilara shouted as she watched him vanish into the chaos, his last transmission cutting off mid-sentence. Back aboard the Solace, the crew mourned quietly. Rin had been young, idealistic, full of dreams he'd never get to fulfill. His sacrifice weighed heavily on everyone, but especially on Ilara. She locked herself in her quarters afterward, replaying his final moments over and over in her mind. The weight of leadership later that evening. Kale knocked softly on her door. When she didn't answer, he let himself in anyway. He found her sitting on the edge of her bunk, staring blankly at the wall. "You okay, Captain?" he asked gently. Ilara laughed bitterly. "Do I look okay?" Kyle sighed and leaned against the doorway. "Rin believed in you. We all do. You're not responsible for what happened to him." "Yes, I am," she snapped, her voice cracking. "I'm the one who dragged us out here. I'm the one putting everyone in danger every damn day. And for what? A slim chance we might actually win?" Kale crouched beside her, meeting her gaze. You think Rin died because he thought we'd lose? No. He died because he believed we'd win. Because you made him believe that. Don't dishonor his memory by doubting yourself now. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Alara straightened, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. We finish this, she said firmly. For Rin. For everyone who can't fight for themselves anymore. Kale nodded. That's the spirit. Preparations for the final push. With the new intel secured, the crew threw themselves into preparations for the assault on the Krithari mothership. It wouldn't be easy. The core was protected by layers of defenses, including automated turrets, patrol ships, and the mothership's own formidable weaponry. The Solace was small, slow, and barely holding together. Against such overwhelming odds, success seemed impossible. But Alara had a plan. The key is distraction, she explained during a strategy meeting. We use the Solace as bait to draw their attention away from the core. While they're focused on us, a small strike team infiltrates the mothership and disables the core from the inside. The idea was risky, suicidal even, but no one argued. They trusted Alara implicitly, knowing she'd never ask them to do anything she wasn't willing to do herself. As the days passed, the mood aboard the ship shifted. Grief gave way to determination. Conversations turned from mourning Rin to honoring his sacrifice. Each crew member poured their energy into making the mission succeed, whether it was calibrating weapons, reinforcing hull plating, or memorizing the layout of the mothership. On the eve of the attack, Alara addressed the crew one last time. Standing on the bridge, she looked each of them in the eye. We've been through hell together, she began, and tomorrow we'll face the worst of it. But remember this, we may be outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched. We are not powerless. Humanity has survived wars, plagues, and disasters because we refuse to give up. That's who we are. That's why we fight. Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. One by one, the crew nodded, resolve hardening in their expressions. For Rin, someone whispered. For Earth, another added. For everyone, Alara finished, into the unknown. The following morning, the Solace emerged from hyperspace near the Krithari mothership. The sight was awe-inspiring and terrifying. The vessel loomed like a mountain, its surface alive with shifting patterns of light. Smaller ships orbited it like moons, forming an impenetrable barrier. Alara took a deep breath, gripping the controls tightly. Here we go. The battle was about to begin. The battle began with a deafening roar. The UES Solace surged forward, its engines straining against the weight of its battered frame. Plasma beams streaked past, narrowly missing the frigate as it darted between towering Krithari ships. Alara's hands gripped the controls tightly, her knuckles white as she maneuvered the ship with precision honed by years of experience. Shields at 60%, shouted Ensign Mira from the sensor station. Her voice was tense but steady, relaying critical updates to the crew. Keep those turrets firing, Alara barked, her eyes locked on the view screen. We need to draw their attention away from the core. The plan was working, at least partially. The Krithari fleet turned its focus toward the Solace, launching wave after wave of biomechanical fighters. The frigate's hull groaned under the strain of repeated impacts, sparks flying across the bridge as systems overloaded. But the distraction bought precious time for the strike team led by Alara herself. Infiltrating the mothership. While the Solace fought valiantly, Alara and her small team boarded a stolen Krithari shuttle, slipping through the chaos undetected. The mothership loomed before them, its surface alive with shifting patterns of light that pulsed like a living organism. This place gives me the creeps, muttered Lieutenant Kara, one of the strike team members, as they approached the docking bay. It should, Alara replied grimly. Stay sharp. We're not getting out of here unless we finish this. Inside the mothership, the air was thick and humid, filled with an eerie hum that seemed to resonate in their chests. The corridors twisted and branched unpredictably, lined with organic-looking walls that glistened faintly. Biomechanical drones patrolled the halls, forcing the team to rely on stealth rather than firepower. At one point, They encountered a group of Krithari enforcers, towering insectoid creatures with razor-sharp limbs and glowing eyes. A brief firefight ensued, the sound of plasma rifles echoing through the narrow passageways. When the dust settled, 2 members of the strike team lay injured, their suits leaking oxygen into the thin atmosphere. "We can't keep this up," Kara said, clutching a wound on her arm. "We'll never make it to the core at this rate." Ilara clenched her jaw, scanning the map displayed on her wrist console. "There's another route, a maintenance tunnel. It's risky, but it might get us closer." With no other options, the team pressed on. The tunnel was dark and cramped, forcing them to crawl on hands and knees. The walls oozed a sticky substance that clung to their gloves and boots, making every movement slow and deliberate. Despite the discomfort, they pushed forward, driven by the knowledge that failure meant annihilation for humanity. Finally, after what felt like hours, they reached the core chamber, confronting the Singularity Core. The room was massive, its ceiling lost in shadow. At its center floated the Singularity Core, a pulsating sphere of energy encased in a lattice of biomechanical tendrils. Its light shifted colors rhythmically, casting strange shadows across the walls. As the team entered, the core emitted a low hum, growing louder until it resonated in their minds. "You have come far," a voice echoed, neither male nor female, neither human nor alien. It was calm, almost soothing. "Why do you resist? Join us, and you will transcend your limitations. Together we will create a new order, a perfect harmony." Ilara froze, her breath catching in her throat. Visions flooded her mind. Images of a unified galaxy, free from war, suffering, and strife. She saw herself standing among the stars, surrounded by countless others who had been assimilated into the collective consciousness. For a fleeting moment it seemed beautiful. But then she remembered Rin's sacrifice. She remembered the faces of the colonists slaughtered without mercy. She remembered Earth, battered and scarred but still fighting. This wasn't salvation. It was erasure. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "I won't let you take that away from us." The core's tone shifted, becoming colder, angrier. "You cling to your individuality, your imperfections. You doom yourselves to endless conflict. Why?" "Because it's who we are," Ilara replied, her voice firm. "Our flaws make us human, and I'd rather die than lose that." With that, she activated the charges planted around the chamber. The core reacted instantly, lashing out with tendrils of energy that snaked toward the team. They scattered, dodging and weaving as explosions rocked the room. Alarms blared, and the entire structure began to shake violently. "Go," Ilara shouted, urging her team toward the exit. "Get back to the shuttle." "But what about you?" Kara demanded, hesitating. "I'll hold it off," Ilara snapped. "Now move." Reluctantly, the team obeyed, sprinting down the corridor. As the core unleashed wave after wave of destructive energy, Ilara stayed behind, planting additional charges while dodging the core's attacks. Each step felt heavier than the last, her body screaming in protest as exhaustion and injuries took their toll. Finally, with the last charge set, she turned and ran, barely making it to the shuttle bay just as the first detonations rippled through the mothership. The explosion cascaded outward, tearing apart the core's defenses and destabilizing the entire structure. Escape and aftermath. The stolen shuttle launched seconds before the mothership collapsed inward, consumed by its own implosion. Ilara gripped the controls tightly, her vision blurred from smoke and fatigue. Behind her, the rest of the strike team sat in stunned silence, watching as the once mighty Krithari fleet disintegrated into cosmic dust. When they rendezvoused with the Solace, the crew erupted into cheers. Chief Navigator Kale hugged Ilara tightly, tears streaming down his face. Even Mira, usually reserved, allowed herself a rare smile, but Ilara didn't celebrate. Instead, she stood quietly on the bridge, staring out at the stars. The battle was over, but the scars would remain, for her, for the crew, for all of humanity. As the Solace limped toward safety, Alara reflected on everything they'd endured. The sacrifices made, the lives lost, the impossible odds overcome. In the end, they had proven one simple truth. Even in the darkest times, hope could burn brighter than despair. The solace became a legend, a symbol of resilience and defiance. Though battered and broken, it had done the impossible, stopped an invasion that threatened to extinguish humanity forever. And Captain Alara Voss? She remained steadfast, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. After all, the fight for survival was never truly over.